This clip, and it's all music that pays off at the end of the episode as part of a song, and there's just something, you know, that feels both kind of retro and futuristic about it, and that's what I like.
Okay, and people who have sung and danced in this series so far?
Mr. Rainbow Connection.
Yeah. Can you play the banjo? Was the question I didn't think I'd get asked doing the show. But yeah, I remember that script coming in, and 45 minutes later somebody had produced a banjo, and I was working on Rainbow Connection, and then it sort of went from there really. We ended up doing the dance battle with Jermaine and Aubrey at the top of season 2. That was pretty awesome. Bollywood, day one. That was the beginning of our journey, was all of us learning to Bollywood dance in Vancouver. It's a big thing up there. And what else? Oh, Naveed and I singing Behind Blue Eyes in Farsi.
Thank you. I didn't even know what I'm getting myself into. So. Oh, God help us.
And when you're choosing songs, you've even done covers for these.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just because it's cheaper than getting the real songs, or whether you're showing off your voice, or what's happening there.
Well, I think Jeff Russo and I, the composer, we talked about wanting the songs to feel like score, to feel like they fit musically into the show. So that was what was behind it in the first place, was just, you know, you hear it a certain way in your head, and then the easiest way to reach that point is to do it yourself. And you know, my motto is, what else can I get away with? And no one said, no, you can't do that. So we just keep doing it.
And then this is a question so that the actors can all talk about how they came to say yes to this project. I assume that for each one of you, there was something different that you read in the first script that you were given that made you say, okay, and then you had to get the job. But can you remember, this many seasons later, what it was that made you think, okay, this is something I really have to do if I can?
Well, I mean, for me it was Noah. I think we worked on Fargo together, and he brought, thank you. Yeah, I think it was just his excitement for the world and for the story, and to think about a Marvel piece with his writing was just really exciting. Why not?
Well, for me it was the same thing. I had a half an hour conversation with him when I was in London, and the way that he sees the world and the way that he sees his characters, it was so fascinating for me. And I wanted to work with him, that's it.
Anybody else? I want to get more voices here.
I was living in Tokyo at the time, and my agency, they sent me this audition, so I did the self-tape on my iPhone, and Noah responded well to it, and I started to watch Legion, and I think that about 2 or 3 episodes in, I just realized how special of a show this was, and how special of a experience this was going to be, so I felt no cell in my body wanted to say no to this.
Okay, Aubrey?
I met Noah for coffee, and I believe I was on crutches at the time.
You were.
And I thought I was meaning for a different part. But then Noah said, well, how about the part of Lenny Busker? Which in the pilot was written as a middle-aged man. And I said, well, I didn't really think about that part when I read the story.
That was your first mistake.
That's right. And he said, well, you know, we can swap the gender. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting, but I don't know if I want to play, you know, just some kind of weirdo in a mental hospital. I don't really know what's going on with this character. So, and then he said, well, you know, you'll die and your body will be taken over by an evil mutant psychic villain. And I said, I'll do that. That's how I came on board.
You were true to your word, yeah. Amber?
For me, it was very similar to Lauren's story. I think I was in a small town called Conyers, Georgia, with my mom, and I got an audition that was 3 pages of dialogue between a character that was not named, of a character that was not named Carrie, with another character that was not in the show. And I did it, and I only knew that it was Marvel, and I knew that it was Noah. And I think just what I read in the 3 pages and what I felt when I did it, it wasn't, and knowing who was involved with it, it wasn't really a question of would I do it, it was more a question of like, can I? Because it was just something that I had no question that I wanted to do.
The thing you have to know about Amber Midthunder's reel is that it has her riding dirt bikes and like extreme sports, and it's a thing of beauty. So there was no question that Amber was going to be in the show.
That's just the weekend, you guys.
And Jeremy, to complete the set.
Yeah, I was in New York at the time, and yeah, it came through as the untitled Noah Hawley project for FX, and I was like, all right, FX is dope. I don't even know if I knew who Noah was at that time. I was like, all right, then I looked him up, and then I started watching Fargo, and I was like, oh, okay. This guy's dope. And then it was the same. I think it was someone named Peter at the time, was the character's name, which is so different than Patanomy, which is like the farthest you can go away from Patanomy is Peter. And I did a tape, and then they just heard like, he likes it. And then it was kind of just from there, it just slowly happened.
Okay. This is for, are you leaning forward to say, okay, no. So here's an acting question, and I can think of at least 4 of you as members of the cast who are not just playing one person, but have over the first 2 seasons already played several, sometimes at the same time, and I'm wondering what the actor trick is to doing that and keeping straight as to who's who when all the who's are you.
That's a me question, I guess, isn't it? That's a very good question. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not alone on this. You know, we have there's an amazing room full of people working on every single episode of this who will help you with questions like that, like, what am I doing? What's happening now? Like, and, you know, it's fun, you know, it's just a series of challenges. I mean, kind of following up to your previous question, it is just every script, there's a kind of warm thrill of confusion that sort of washes over you, a kind of space cadet glow, where you're just like, I don't really know what's happening, but it's great. And
that's what it's like watching it.
That's what it's like to transmit, and that's what it's like to receive. And so we're all sort of sharing in this wonderful experience, and that's really what it has been. I think is an experience. And so each one of those entities that might be at the helm of David at any one time is all kind of feeding the larger experience. Really, I'm never looking for the sort of the overarching narrative to each one of them. It's how they are battling, you know, with one particular situation or one particular interaction. But it's just a whole ball of fun challenges every day.
Well, here's one specific. When you and Rachel in character switched consciousnesses, did you like talk to each other beforehand about which bits of your physical personalities you were going to steal, and how did that go?
A little bit.
Because he's inside of my head. I feel like it was different because to me, we are separate people, but we just share a space. And so for us, it was really like, from the first day that we met, I like zeroed in on him and I was like, we're gonna be best friends. And we really are, like, we're very close and we spend a lot of time together, and you know, it's just sort of like, how do we, I feel like our cohabitated space is a lot of focusing on our differences rather than where we are alike, because I think that's the beauty of the Carries, is that they make up this dynamic of 2 people who seem so in sync that they are one. And I feel like that's how we've done that. But even like in the first season, I had that thing where like Aubrey's monster thing took over my body. And when I did that, I feel like I just asked her all the questions. I just found her and I trapped her in a corner and I asked her everything I could.
And then to make the transition to season 3, and I've only got a couple of minutes before I turn to questions over to you guys. So in a couple of minutes, if you want to go towards the microphones. But Lauren, I'm wondering, we just saw you and just about only you for the first, what's going to be 20-25% of the pilot or the premiere of the new season. I can't remember the last time a character was introduced that aggressively.
Yeah, it's crazy for me to watch it now too, because this is the first time I've ever done any kind of scripted anything. I mean, to have it be with Marvel and with Noah and FX and Legion, I remember I was watching, because I was living in Japan, but once I got this job, I just dropped everything, left my apartment and moved straight out to LA, and I finished watching season 2 on the plane, and then shortly after that I was going into fittings and starting season 3, so it's just been a crazy whirlwind, and I'm really excited for you all to see and get to know Switch, though. It's going to be a very interesting season, and it's been a crazy time of learning for me.
This is what I'm going to follow up on. It's going to be a very interesting season. It is the final season. I didn't make that.
We like to think of it as it's the end of this particular story. That's
There you go.
Noah, I think that's a question that you should address. I'll frame it this way. If this is indeed the end of Legion as we know it right now, why end it after 3, and how did you decide upon an appropriate end point?
Well, you know, in looking at a story about a character who is mentally ill, there was a sense of a kind of path of the illness and recovery that he goes on. You know, we meet him in the hospital. He's had his lowest point. They've medicated him, and he gets to a place, he meets a girl, let's call her his real medication. He gets very happy, leaves the hospital, everything's going great, then he stops taking his meds, then he starts to spiral. You know, I feel like where we left him at the end of the second season, again at his lowest point, you know, there's only 2 ways that he can go. He can either get back to a healthy place, or he can go off the bottom of the map. And once we decide which one of those he's going to do, it felt like that's sort of the end of the story, because otherwise you just start the loop all over again. But it's not an easy decision to end a story, and you know, we're filming the last episode now, and we just filmed the final scene last night, and you know, it's very, you know, obviously it's bittersweet, but a story has no meaning without its ending, and you know, the old paradigm of television was, you know, major corporations don't usually do a mic drop after a success. You know, you have to keep going and keep going, and there's something about being allowed to just tell a complete story where the length of the show is dictated by the length of the story that makes television better.
So, one minor and one major follow-up. The minor is that a lot of shows that are ending